Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you today about suffering, specifically the kind of suffering that tears you apart from the inside, the suffering of a broken heart. Love is a high-stakes game. To truly care for another person means exposing yourself to the possibility of deep, gut-wrenching loss. And when that loss comes, when the person you love is no longer there, the world collapses into chaos. So what do? Do you drown in despair, convincing yourself that life has lost its meaning? Or do you take the harder but far more rewarding road toward healing? Pain is real. It's not something you can simply wish away or ignore, no matter how much you might want to. A broken heart is among the deepest pains a person can experience because it strikes at the very foundation of who we are, our need for connection, meaning, and love. When you lose someone you loved, whether through betrayal, abandonment, or simply the natural erosion of a relationship, it can feel as if reality itself has fractured. The world you knew is no longer the world that exists. The future you imagined has disappeared. The routines, the messages, the shared moments, suddenly they are gone, and in their place, there is only silence. It is tempting in this moment to run, to avoid the pain in whatever way you can. People do this in different ways. Some people drown themselves in distractions, hours upon hours of television, social media, video games, or anything that can temporarily pull their mind away from their suffering. Others seek numbness through substances, drinking to escape, smoking to relax, indulging in short-term pleasures that offer fleeting relief but ultimately deepen the wound. Some people jump immediately into another relationship, desperately seeking validation, hoping that another person can fill the void left behind. But all of these are avoidance mechanisms. They are ways of refusing to acknowledge what has happened, of denying the truth of your suffering. And the problem with avoidance is that it does not make the pain go away. It only buries it deeper. A wound that is ignored does not heal, it festers. When you suppress grief, when you push it aside and refuse to face it, it does not disappear. It simply waits. And when it resurfaces, it often does so in ways you don't expect. In anger, in cynicism, in a slow-growing resentment that poisons your relationships and your ability to love again. The only way to truly begin the process of healing is to face reality head-on. That means acknowledging without self-deception that you are in pain, that something significant has been lost, that a part of you is grieving, and that grief is not something you can shortcut or bypass. It is something you must experience fully in order to move through it. There is an idea in psychology called exposure therapy, which is used to help people confront their deepest fears. When someone is terrified of something, say public speaking or heights or social rejection, the worst thing they can do is avoid it. Avoidance only strengthens fear. The same principle applies to emotional pain. If you refuse to acknowledge your heartbreak, you give it power over you. You make it something that controls you rather than something you control. Instead, you must expose yourself to the pain gradually, deliberately, and with full awareness. That means allowing yourself to feel. If you need to cry, cry. If you feel anger, acknowledge it, but do not let it consume you. If you feel lost, admit that you feel lost. Do not pretend to be fine when you are not. Do not suppress the pain because it is uncomfortable. Let yourself grieve. Speak honestly about your emotions, even if only to yourself. Write them down if you need to. Name them. Give them form. Because when you name something, when you define it clearly, you begin to understand it. And what you understand, you can control. Confronting reality also means resisting the urge to distort the past. After a breakup or loss, it is common to idealize what was. You might find yourself replaying only the good moments, remembering the laughter, the warmth, the sense of belonging. This can be a trap. It keeps you chained to something that no longer exists. It blinds you to the flaws and the reasons why things ended. It creates an illusion that the past was perfect and that the future can never compare. But the past was never perfect. No relationship is. If it were, it would not have ended. Be honest with yourself about the truth of the situation. What worked? What didn't? What could you have done differently? What could they have done differently? Not for the sake of self-blame or bitterness, but for the sake of understanding, because understanding is the foundation of growth. Confronting reality also means accepting uncertainty. When a relationship ends, especially one that was deeply meaningful, it can feel as if the future has become a void. You may have built your identity around that relationship. You may have planned your life around it, and now that future is gone. That is terrifying. The human mind craves certainty. It wants to know what happens next. But the truth is, you don't know, and that is okay. In these moments, the mind tends to jump to extremes. It tells you that you will never love again, that you will always be alone, that you have lost something that can never be replaced. But that is not reality. That is fear speaking. You cannot predict the future, and any assumption that you do is likely to be wrong. You do not know what new relationships, new opportunities, and new experiences may come. You do not know what lessons this pain will teach you and how it will shape you into a stronger, wiser version of yourself. But you will never find out if you remain stuck in an illusion of the past, except that the future is uncertain, and that uncertainty is not necessarily a bad thing. It means possibility, it means growth, it means that you are now free to build something new, something that may be even better than what was lost. So step one is this: stop lying to yourself, stop avoiding, stop pretending. Stand up straight, look at the truth directly and say, this is what happened, this is where I am, and now I must move forward. It will hurt, but that pain is necessary. It is the fire through which you will be reforged. And if you endure it, if you face it fully and without deception, you will emerge on the other side, not as the person you were before, but as someone stronger, wiser, and more prepared for whatever comes next. No one is coming to save you. That is a hard truth, but it is one you must accept if you want to heal. When your heart is broken, there is a deep and almost instinctive desire to be rescued, to have someone come along and take the pain away, to tell you that everything will be okay, to provide comfort and reassurance that you are still worthy of love. And while support from friends and family is valuable, and while moments of kindness from others can ease the burden, the reality is that no one can do the real work of healing for you. You are the only person responsible for rebuilding yourself. It is easy to fall into the mindset of helplessness when you are in pain. You feel as if something has been taken from you, something vital, something that made life meaningful. You may even feel like a victim of circumstance, abandoned and discarded, left to suffer while the world moves on. But the danger of this perspective is that it keeps you stuck, it makes you passive, it places your well-being in the hands of external forces, whether that be the hope that your ex will return, the idea that someone new will come along and fix everything, or the belief that time alone will heal you without effort. None of these things are guaranteed. The only thing that is guaranteed is your ability to take action. Taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for everything that happened. It does not mean obsessively replaying past mistakes or punishing yourself for things you cannot change. What it does mean is recognizing that no matter what happened, your healing is now your job. No one else can do it for you. If you refuse to take ownership of that fact, you will stay exactly where you are, trapped in pain, unable to move forward. The first step in taking responsibility is recognizing that your actions matter. When you are heartbroken, it is easy to fall into destructive habits. You might stop taking care of yourself. You might isolate yourself from the world. You might stay in bed for days, letting the weight of your emotions consume you. And while it is natural to feel exhausted and unmotivated, you must understand that every action you take, no matter how small, is shaping your recovery. There is a concept in psychology known as behavioral activation. It is the idea that action precedes emotion. When you are depressed or in pain, you do not feel like doing anything. You do not feel like getting up, like exercising, like engaging with life. But waiting until you feel like doing these things is a mistake, because the feeling may never come on its own. What behavioral activation teaches us is that doing something, taking even the smallest step forward, creates momentum. When you force yourself to get up and move, even when you do not feel like it, your emotions begin to follow. The action comes first, the motivation comes second. This means that taking responsibility for your healing begins with small, concrete actions. Get out of bed at a consistent time, even if you do not want to. Make your bed. Take a shower. Go for a walk. Eat a nutritious meal. These things seem minor, but they are not. They are signals to your brain that you are still in control of your life, that you are still a person capable of structure and discipline. And the more you engage in these behaviors, the more your mind will begin to shift. Taking responsibility also means being brutally honest with yourself. It means looking at your role in the relationship and understanding what you can learn from it. This is not about self-blame. It is about self-awareness. Were there red flags that you ignored? Did you lose yourself in the relationship, neglecting your own needs and goals? Did you rely too much on another person for your sense of happiness? These are difficult questions to ask, but they are necessary. If you refuse to examine yourself, if you place all the blame on the other person or on external circumstances, you miss an opportunity for growth. People who do not take responsibility for their healing often repeat the same patterns. They enter new relationships carrying the same wounds, making the same mistakes, and experiencing the same pain over and over again. This is because they have not learned, they have not done the work of truly understanding themselves. If you want to heal, you must be willing to confront your own flaws, to acknowledge where you went wrong, and to commit to becoming a better version of yourself. Another aspect of taking responsibility is refusing to wallow in resentment. It is easy to be bitter. It is easy to focus on the ways you were hurt, the ways you were wronged, and to let anger consume you. But resentment is a poison that only harms the person who holds on to it. If you make your heartbreak the defining tragedy of your life, if you tell yourself that you are a victim and that life is unfair, you will stay trapped in negativity. Instead, you must choose to rise above it, not for the sake of the person who hurt you, but for your own sake. Forgiveness is not about excusing what happened. It is not about pretending that you were not hurt. It is about recognizing that holding on to pain and anger will only weigh you down. When you forgive not just the other person, but also yourself, you free yourself from the burden of the past. You allow yourself to move forward without carrying the weight of resentment. Taking responsibility also means setting new goals for yourself. When a relationship ends, it leaves a void. The time and energy you once devoted to another person is now unclaimed space in your life. If you do not fill that space with purpose, it will be filled with longing and regret. This is why it is crucial to redirect your focus towards something meaningful. What have you neglected in your life? What goals have you put on hold? What skills have you wanted to develop but never pursued? Now is the time to invest in yourself. Maybe you start reading more. Maybe you go back to school. Maybe you take up a new hobby, start a business, or improve your physical fitness. Whatever it is, it should be something that challenges you, something that pushes you toward becoming a stronger and more capable person. Growth is the antidote to heartbreak. When you are focused on building a future, you are no longer stuck mourning the past. In the end, taking responsibility for your healing is about reclaiming your power. It is about recognizing that no matter what happened, you still have control over your life. You can choose to stay in pain, or you can choose to move forward. You can choose to let heartbreak define you, or you can choose to use it as fuel for transformation. The choice is yours. But understand this, if you do not take responsibility for your own healing, no one else will. Pain is not just something to endure, it is something to learn from. This is a lesson that many people miss when they go through heartbreak. They focus so much on the suffering itself, on the grief, the loneliness, and the anger, that they fail to see the deeper purpose within it. But suffering is a teacher. It carries within it the seeds of wisdom, transformation, and personal growth if you are willing to listen. Heartbreak is one of the most powerful emotional experiences a person can go through. It forces you to confront yourself in ways that few other things can. When you are in a relationship, your sense of self is often intertwined with another person. You share experiences, thoughts, routines, and even dreams for the future. And when that relationship ends, it can feel like you have lost a part of yourself. But the real question is, what does this loss reveal about you? The pain of a broken heart is not just about missing another person. It is about the disruption of your identity. Who were you before the relationship? Who were you during it? And who are you now in its absence? These are difficult questions, but they are necessary, because if you do not take the time to understand what this pain is trying to teach you, you will carry the same patterns, the same mistakes, and the same vulnerabilities into your future. And that will only lead to more suffering. One of the first things you must do is analyze the relationship itself, not just in broad emotional terms, I miss them, I love them, they hurt me, but in concrete, practical ways. What did this relationship reveal about you? Were there warning signs you ignored? Did you lose yourself in the other person? Did you place too much of your self-worth in their hands? Or perhaps, did you fail to appreciate what you had while you had it? These are not easy reflections because they require honesty, but honesty is necessary if you want to extract meaning from your suffering. Many people refuse to do this work because it is uncomfortable. It is far easier to paint yourself as the victim, to blame the other person entirely, or to convince convince yourself that the relationship was perfect and its ending was a tragedy that should never have happened. But reality is rarely that simple. There is always a lesson. If you are willing to look closely, you will see it. One of the most common lessons people learn from heartbreak is the importance of self-sufficiency. It is easy when you are in love to become dependent on another person, not just for companionship, but for validation, security, and even purpose. You share your happiness with them, your dreams, your fears, your struggles. And when they are gone, it can feel as though all of those things have been taken away. But that is an illusion. No one can take away who you are. What heartbreak reveals is the areas where you relied too much on someone else to complete you. And this is an opportunity to correct that. If you place too much of your happiness in someone else's hands, this pain is telling you that you must become your own source of happiness. If you lost yourself in the relationship, this pain is telling you that you must rediscover who you are outside of it. If you neglected your personal goals and dreams because you were too focused on the other person, this pain is telling you that it is time to refocus on your own path. Pain is not random, it is a signal. And if you ignore it, you miss the lesson. Another lesson that often emerges from heartbreak is the necessity of resilience. Life is unpredictable. People change. Circumstances shift. Even the strongest love can fade, not always through betrayal or conflict, but simply through the natural evolution of life. If you build your sense of security on the assumption that love is permanent, you will always be vulnerable. But if you build your security on the understanding that nothing in life is guaranteed, and that you have the strength to endure even the deepest losses, then no heartbreak can ever destroy you completely. Resilience does not mean suppressing your emotions. It does not mean pretending you are fine when you are not. It means understanding that suffering is temporary, that you have the power to rebuild, and that even the worst pain can be transformed into wisdom. Every person who has ever grown into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable has done so because they faced hardship. They suffered, they reflected, they learned, and they adapted. That is how growth happens. Another essential lesson hidden within heartbreak is the importance of standards. Many people, after experiencing loss, begin to see things they previously ignored. They recognize behaviors they accepted that they should not have. They see patterns of self-sacrifice, of settling for less than they deserved, of tolerating disrespect or neglect because they feared being alone. This pain is an opportunity to redefine what you will and will not accept in the future. It is an invitation to raise your standards, not just in relationships, but in how you treat yourself. If you are with someone who did not truly value you, the lesson is that you must first value yourself enough to demand better. If you gave more than you received, the lesson is that love should be reciprocal, not one-sided. If you stayed too long in something that was not right for you, the lesson is that your time and emotional well-being are precious and you must protect them. Every heartbreak contains wisdom about what you need to change moving forward. But you will only see that wisdom if you choose to look for it. Beyond relationships, heartbreak teaches something even more profound, the necessity of meaning beyond love. Many people structure their entire lives around relationships. They make another person their primary source of purpose, fulfillment, and joy. And when that person leaves, their world collapses. But this reveals a fundamental mistake, placing all of your meaning in something external, something that can be lost. The most resilient people are those who build meaning in multiple areas. They have passions, goals, a sense of purpose beyond romantic love. They see love as an important part of life, but not the only part. If this pain has left you feeling empty, it is telling you that you need to fill your life with something more. Maybe that means focusing on your career. Maybe it means developing a new skill, pursuing a creative passion, strengthening your relationships with friends and family, or dedicating yourself to a cause greater than yourself. The point is that life is vast. Love is a part of it, but it is not the only thing that defines you. Heartbreak is an invitation to broaden your world, to become someone who is whole, even in solitude. Suffering is not meaningless. It is not random. It is an opportunity, an invitation to grow, to evolve, to become someone stronger and wiser than before. But this transformation does not happen automatically. It requires effort, reflection, and the willingness to look at your pain not as something to be avoided, but as something to be understood. Every wound carries a lesson, and if you are brave enough to learn it, you will emerge from this heartbreak not just healed, but transformed. Isolation is one of the most dangerous responses to heartbreak. When you are in pain, the instinct to withdraw from the world is strong. You feel as though no one truly understands what you are going through, as though the weight of your emotions is something you must bear alone. Perhaps you feel ashamed of your suffering, believing that admitting your pain is a sign of weakness, or maybe you feel betrayed by the person who hurt you, by life itself, and you no longer trust others to offer you comfort or support. But this isolation, while understandable, is also a trap. Human beings are not meant to suffer alone. We are social creatures wired for connection, and one of the most important things you can do when you are heartbroken is to resist the urge to retreat into solitude. Because when you isolate yourself, you create an environment where your pain festers, where your thoughts spiral unchecked, and where despair takes root. You become lost in your own mind, replaying memories, dwelling on regrets, and allowing the past to consume you. One of the greatest mistakes people make in heartbreak is assuming that they must face it in silence. They think, no one wants to hear about my pain. I don't want to burden anyone. But the truth is that sharing your pain is not a burden. It is a necessity. The simple act of verbalizing your emotions to someone who listens can bring immense relief. It can help you make sense of what you are feeling, externalizing the chaos in your mind and allowing you to see things more clearly. The right kind of support can be transformative. It is not about finding someone who will simply agree with everything you say or fuel your anger toward the person who hurt you. It is about finding people who remind you of who you are, who challenge your negative thoughts, who encourage you to see beyond the present pain. Friends, family, mentors, these people can offer you perspective when your own thoughts are clouded. They can remind you that you are still loved, still valuable, still capable of joy, even when you struggle to see it yourself. But connection is not just about talking, it is also about action. One of the most healing things you can do is engage with the world even when every part of you wants to withdraw. This means saying yes when friends invite you out, even if you do not feel like going. It means showing up for social events, even when you feel out of place. It means placing yourself in environments where life is happening, rather than allowing yourself to fade into the background. You might think, I'll reconnect with people once I feel better, but that is the wrong order. You feel better because you reconnect. The brain and body respond to social interaction in profound ways. Studies have shown that spending time with loved ones reduces stress, lowers cortisol levels, and even has tangible effects on healing. When you are around people who uplift you, your mind begins to shift. The pain does not disappear instantly, but it becomes lighter. It becomes manageable. Sometimes connection means seeking professional help. Therapy is not a sign of weakness. It is a tool for self-awareness and healing. A good therapist will not just listen. They will help you identify patterns in your thinking, challenge your assumptions, and provide strategies for moving forward. There is no shame in seeking guidance. If anything, it is a sign of strength, an acknowledgement that you value your well-being enough to invest in it. There is also an important aspect of healing that goes beyond human relationships, your connection to something greater than yourself. For some people, this is spirituality or faith. For others, it is a sense of purpose, a dedication to a cause, or a commitment to something meaningful. When you are heartbroken, your world shrinks. Your focus narrows to the pain you are feeling, to the loss you have endured. But when you actively seek connection beyond yourself, you begin to expand again. This might mean volunteering, engaging in creative expression, or simply spending time in nature. It might mean reminding yourself that life is vast, that there is still beauty and meaning outside of this one painful experience. You are not just a person who has been hurt, you are a person who still has something to offer the world. And the sooner you step outside of your own suffering, the sooner you will begin to heal. At its core, heartbreak is a test of resilience. And resilience is not about facing pain alone. It is about knowing when to reach out, when to lean on others, and when to remind yourself that you are part of something larger. It is about refusing to let your suffering isolate you, knowing that true healing comes from engagement, from connection, from the courage to re-enter the world, even when it feels difficult. The pain is real, but so is your capacity to overcome it. And you do not have to do it alone. The future is not written yet. That is an essential truth to grasp when you are dealing with heartbreak. In the depths of pain, it is easy to believe that this suffering is permanent, that the happiness you once had is gone forever, that you will never find love again, that your best days are behind you. This is one of the greatest lies the mind tells in times of despair. It convinces you that the way you feel now is the way you will always feel, trapping you in a cycle of hopelessness and regret. But that is not reality. Reality is fluid. Life is constantly changing, and the future is not a fixed outcome. It is something that you shape through your actions, your choices, and your willingness to move forward. When you have lost something or someone you loved, your mind naturally clings to the past. You replay memories, reliving the moments when you were happy. You analyze what went wrong, trying to find answers, trying to undo what cannot be. Nostalgia can be intoxicating, making it seem as though nothing in the future will ever measure up to what you had. But the problem with this thinking is that it assumes life is static, that the best has already happened, and that nothing new, nothing equally beautiful can emerge. This is simply not true. Consider the person you were before this relationship even began. There was a time when you did not know this person, a time when your happiness was not tied to them, a time when your world was still filled with possibilities. And then they came into your life. And for a time, they added to it. They became a part of your story. But that story did not end when they left. It is still being written. And the same way that love found you before, it can find you again. The same way that new experiences shaped you in the past, new experiences will shape you in the future, but only if you allow them to. The biggest mistake people make after heartbreak is closing themselves off to life. They retreat inward, shutting down their emotions, refusing to engage with the world. They convince themselves that love is not worth the risk, that they will never trust again, that nothing new could possibly compare to what they lost. But this is fear speaking, not truth. If you allow fear to dictate your actions, you will never give yourself the chance to experience what is still waiting for you. The truth is, life is unpredictable. If you look back, you will see that some of the most important moments of your life were unexpected. You did not plan every person you met, every opportunity you received, every moment that changed your path. Many of these things happen spontaneously, arising out of chance encounters, small decisions, and unforeseen circumstances. The same will be true of your future. There are people you have not yet met who will impact your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. There are experiences you have not yet had that will bring you joy, fulfillment, and purpose. But you must be willing to step into the unknown to receive them. This does not mean rushing into a new relationship as a way to escape your pain. That is not healing. That is avoidance. It means understanding that the pain you are feeling now is temporary. It means recognizing that love is not a finite resource, that just because you lost one relationship does not mean you are incapable of forming another. It means understanding that heartbreak, as painful as it is, does not define you. What defines you is what you do next. Do you let this pain harden you, making you bitter and fearful, or do you use it as fuel for growth? Do you allow yourself to believe in the possibility of a future that is just as rich, if not richer, than the past? That is your choice. One of the most powerful things you can do is to actively build your future, rather than passively waiting for it to happen. This means setting new goals, developing new interests, and creating a vision for the life you want to live. When you are heartbroken, it is easy to dwell on what was lost. But if you shift your focus to what can still be gained, you begin to reclaim your sense of power. Start by asking yourself, what kind of life do you want to create? What dreams have you put on hold? What skills do you want to develop? What places do you want to see? What experiences do you want to have? What kind of person do you want to become? These questions shift your focus away from the past and toward the future. They remind you that your life is still yours to shape. Taking action toward your future does not mean you have to have everything figured out immediately. It just means taking small steps. Maybe it means starting a new project, signing up for a class, traveling to a place you've always wanted to visit, or simply pushing yourself to try something different. The point is to keep moving forward, to engage with life rather than retreat from it. Healing does not happen all at once. There will be days when the past still haunts you, when the pain resurfaces, when you feel stuck. That is normal. But if you continue to choose growth, even on the hardest days, you will eventually find yourself in a place where the pain no longer controls you, where you can look back on what happened with understanding rather than regret, where you can see that this heartbreak, as painful as it was just one chapter in a much larger story, one that is still unfolding. The future is not written yet. Your happiness is not over. Your best days are not behind you. There is still more to experience, still more love to give and receive, still more life to be lived. And when you finally embrace that truth, when you allow yourself to believe that something better is still possible, you take the first real step toward healing. Heartbreak is one of the most painful experiences a person can endure, but it is not the end of your story. It is a test, a challenge that forces you to confront who you are, what you value, and how you will move forward. Suffering, as unbearable as it may seem, is not meaningless. It carries lessons, opportunities for growth, and the chance to become someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. Pain teaches you about yourself, about your vulnerabilities, your strengths, and your capacity for love. It reveals what needs to change, what must be left behind, and what must be built anew. It reminds you that healing is not about escaping suffering, but about learning from it. You must face your pain with courage, extract its lessons, and use them to shape the person you will become. You cannot heal in isolation. Connection to others, to purpose, to something greater than yourself is essential. The world does not stop moving because you are heartbroken, and neither should you. Engage with life even when it feels difficult. Reconnect with the people who care for you. Pursue the goals that make you feel alive, and remind yourself that your value is not dependent on any one person or relationship. Above all, do not let heartbreak convince you that your best days are behind you. The future is unwritten, full of possibilities you have yet to discover. Love is not something you experience only once. Life is not defined by a single loss. If you choose growth over despair, if you refuse to let pain make you bitter, and if you continue to move forward with an open heart, you will find that what lies ahead is not just recovery, it is transformation. Your story is not over. You are still becoming. And if you embrace this journey, you will come to see that heartbreak was not an ending. It was the beginning of something greater.